This might be the last week of Skype. Like we might need to switch to something else.
We do.
There's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah, Skype has not been friendly to me or my computer.
Yeah, it doesn't like this. Welcome everybody to Technical Issues Volume 34. Today we'll be solving internet connectivity
on the Super Lunch Bros podcast, featuring myself, Nate, and Brendan.
Some other dude? I don't know.
Someone.
Yeah, a guy.
Sometimes Brandon, sometimes Brendan. Depending on where he's
Brian, working. Brad, Braden.
B-Dog,
Not that, though. Probably not that, huh?
No.
Probably not that one.
No.
All right. What is going on, everybody? Before we get started again, like and subscribe. If you're just listening to this on Spotify or on other platforms, this is on YouTube. If you want the audio version only and you are watching this on YouTube, go to the aforementioned sites. We had some fights. UFC 250. Yeah. Let's start at the top. First of all, your impressions of this card. Remember, it was a pay-per-view. Like, we had to pay for this one, so your thoughts on it.
All right, so name-wise, I'd say it stacks up to be a pay-per-view. Like, it may not be, fight week pay-per-view or like, the New Year's Eve kind of like January pay-per-view, but it's still, I'd say it was a decent pay-per-view card. And regardless of that, I thought it was just a great card. It's good fights all the way through. Like, I wasn't mad at it. Like, it might have been what people were wanting to see, but I think for an MMA fan, it was a good UFC card.
I think you get rid of the title fight at the top and replace it with literally any other fight. Make one of the other fights on the main card the headliner, and you make this a fight night, and it's an excellent card. I think the biggest problem was
this could have been one of the best fight night cards of the year.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like as a pay-per-view, name recognition is important. They've built they've built up names on fight night cards. That's what they do. Like, that's the whole point, getting them more exposure, letting people see it for almost free. I mean, with ESPN Plus, there is a little bit of a barrier to entry, but not much, especially with how many people have Disney Plus and probably got that package.
Myself included.
Yeah, me too. So that's the point. Is I was left slightly disappointed, not in a fight fan perspective, but also kind of long-term implication. The excitement over this card, the excitement after the card was over. There are a lot of things and a lot of prospects that came out of this card, which is fantastic. But I think that speaks more to the point where this should have been a fight night. Maybe even put one of these other fights as a 5-rounder and have them fight for a title next, that kind of thing.
All right, so my other knock on this card is I think it kind of does do Amanda Nunes a disservice to have to headline a pay-per-view on such a weak card, so to say. Because, I mean, it's just going to make it look like her pay-per-view numbers aren't great.
Well, they're not. It's not a draw.
Although I would also argue the UFC has not necessarily capitalized on her in the way that they could have. But that being said, as an individual, she's not going out and doing things to make herself more of a draw. But
no, I think she's a wholesome. She seems to be a very wholesome person, and it would be very difficult to root against her. She has kind of a George St. Pierre-esque quality about her, dominant in her time, very, soft-spoken, very good-willed, doesn't seem to have any animosity towards her opponents. She's one of those, and as we saw with George St. Pierre, he wasn't an immediate star. It took time for him to build that up, and I think the thing that George St. Pierre had going for him, one, was the pay-per-view model at the time was more successful than it is now. Two, there were
I mean,
higher tier opponents. He had more opponents that
he had the
could
villains,
challenge
and not
him.
necessarily like the villains, but he had the competition to make him look great too.
Yes, but I mean, later in his career, he was, like I said before, risk adverse, and he was still selling pay-per-views because he was the most popular man in Canada as far as the UFC is concerned. So I think given another couple of years, she could be a star. People would either be paying for her to see her demolish another girl, or paying to see her lose. And I think that's what we're waiting on. I don't know what else she can do that's within her character that we've seen so far that wouldn't be totally like cringeworthy.
I feel like we need like a female Kobe Covington. Like she needs a.
We had that. We had that with Besh Kohea, and it was disgusting, and she was terrible. And if you mean Kobe Covington, like total package type of deal, like someone who can also fight their ass off, I agree.
Yeah, but you need someone to be her dance partner.
Well, we have it, and it's Valentina. But the problem is, that second she beat her once in 3 rounds, which it's not that it doesn't count, but that 3-round fight clearly showed that Valentina has what it takes to stand with her. And then the 5-round fight, I want to say it was a split decision, and if it wasn't a split decision, it doesn't matter because it was so close that Amanda Nunes was slightly surprised and overly excited that she got the decision. That's how close it was. Anytime at the end of a fight when people are clamoring to see it again like that, like there's a reason for that.
I don't know.
So she destroyed Felicia Spencer. I didn't see this going any other way. There was one path to victory in my head that Felicia had, and that was to grapple. Not necessarily take her down, but get in her face and tire out Nunes. And early on, we saw that. Yeah. Well, it wasn't working, man. She got her. Anytime she had a modicum of control, she just got thrown to the ground or pushed away. Push up against the cage. She had no control at any point in this fight, and sadly, we're here talking about this again. Should the corner have thrown in the towel? At what point? It's not just about damage; it's also about your path to victory. What is your path to victory? Because she's not fucking Dan Henderson, okay? Like she's not knocking anybody out with one shot. It's never been shown in her career, and it wasn't looking like she had anything threatening to Nunes in this fight. Her path to victory was get in close and grapple and grind out a decision, maybe get on top and possibly finish the fight that way. And once you're down 3 rounds, those options are no longer available to you. Like you could maybe get a finish, but clearly that wasn't happening. And you're
also fighting Amanda Nunes. It's not like she's... It's not like she's throwing punches for points. Like she's not. She's throwing punches to hurt you.
And like all credit to Amanda Nunes, she was restrained. She was technical. She looked way better on the feet. Granted, she was fighting a inferior striker, but we saw what happened with Durandamy. Durandamy took a couple big punches early in the first round and then weathered the storm. Nunes got tired on the feet. People don't want to say that. They aren't mentioning that anymore. They're talking about her cardio and how good it is. It's good because she controls herself and she keeps the pace of the fight at what she wants. So she's controlling everything. When someone else presses her and in any way, she's still going to get tired. She does not have the cardio to go put her foot on the gas for 5 rounds. She does not. Okay. The improvements have come from her restraint and her technique and her fight IQ. So
cardio always looks good when you get to pace yourself.
Exactly. And she's winning that way. So there's nothing going against her here. But what I'm saying is Randamy's path to victory was striking. And we saw her, kind of piece up Nunes on the feet. And Nunes is like, I don't like this anymore. I'm taking her down. So Nunes is at the point where she's better enough than her opponents in a certain aspect of the game that allows her to dictate the pace of the fight. So she's going up against a well-rounded striker who can't necessarily stop a takedown. Well, then she's taking the path of least resistance. She's going to take you down, and same vice versa. If she's going up against a hardened wrestler who wants to take her down. She's got good takedown defense, so she's going to keep you up and piece you up on the feet. Now, those don't make for the most exciting fights. She's had some, one round knockout like that fight against Cyborg. That was fun. And I would love to see them run that back, but Cyborg's not in the UFC anymore. They're not going to do that.
She's
It's not that
never
it
coming
was.
back.
Also, Cyborg's, she's long in the tooth. And, I think the UFC really missed the opportunity to capitalize on Cyborg's potential about 5, 6 years ago. They just did. She's been fighting for a long time. Remember, this is the woman who beat Gina Carano in Strikeforce. Like, this is way back in the day, like 2000 and what was that, like 2009?
She would have done a lot for the female divisions of the UFC if they had her mixing it up in there and people trying to chase her at the time. Because people like to see someone that is terrifying.
And she was, and she still is.
Yeah.
So her at the top of her game, and also I understand that Nunes and Cyborg, they weren't on a collision course as far as their primes go, so maybe that never would have happened. Mm-hmm. But Cyborg in her prime versus Nunes in her prime, maybe you still take Nunes, but I think that's a very competitive fight. I still think that first fight could have been competitive if Cyborg didn't try to bum rush her and throw all caution to the wind and just hang her chin out there. I think she could have done a better job with technical striking, but we're never going to see that, so that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, she has cleaned out 2 divisions. She has nobody left to fight that we really want to see. Megan Anderson wants to fight her. Came off a big victory, and I'm still okay with that. I'm okay with her fighting her.
I don't know. I don't see it adding to her legacy at this point. I don't know.
It's just another tally.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. This is kind of like.
I had one other thing.
It's kind of like
pay-per-view before we start getting down deep into the fights. I think this fight also threw me off because I'm not raking in the dough, and it's a lot to ask to pay for a pay-per-view now. Because most people are we're kind of at that height of unemployment still.
That's what I mean.
And another reason it's been a while since that stimulus. The last UFC stimulus check came in, everyone's feeling a little flush. Yeah, we're all missing sport. Yeah, we're all missing sports, so it had that benefit. This card was kind of meh, and not a lot of people still aren't working, and a lot of people are now looking down, still being unemployed in the near future. So, $64. If they had dropped it down to $24. I think that would have been a better way. Start scaling back the cost for some of these fight cards. Because having ESPN Plus and then paying $75 for a single UFC fight, sell me a package. Yep. Sell me 3 UFCs for $100 and let me pick which ones I want to use for that. Starting to put together some pay-per-view package deals, and I might be a little bit more interested.
Yeah, the way that the old pay-per-view model, I think for them it's going to set a dangerous precedence to lower the price for one of them. There's no incentive for them to do it because they already have money coming in from ESPN. Everything else is just icing. This is icing on the cake at this point. So
I think
every time we spend money, they just make more.
Though. Yeah, but I think someone has to sit down and actually present it as a business model. There's ways to change the business model to where they're more successful with what they got. What they're doing is working, but I don't know. How do they breach to that next level? That's where my head's at.
I mean, the ESPN thing's a big deal, but they're also, you're right, there should be a tiered structure when it comes to purchasing fights. I'd be okay. I don't know. What if you spend $500? I know it's a lot, but what if you spend $500 and then you get to watch every pay-per-view that year?
Kind of the NFL Red Zone or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's what? If there's 10 pay-per-views a year, let's just say 10 instead of 12. Let's say there's 10. That's $50 a pay-per-view. They're still making money, but you get to save a little bit on the top. And if they do add more pay-per-views, the price goes down just a little bit for you. So even if you're paying on average $40 per pay-per-view, people might be willing to dump that out because then they're guaranteed to watch it.
If you gave me the option to pay for a platinum, let's call it platinum level fight pass, and I paid
I would do that.
I paid $449.99 for the year, and I got access to every single pay-per-view, I would pay for it.
Yeah, so would I.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's a big lump sum at one time that the UFC gets to count on. And then they can still charge for the pay-per-view. So the people who only want one or two, the more casual fans, they're going to pay for those bigger cards as they come anyway.
I think they would be surprised by how many people they would get to jump on that model.
Yeah, and what are they losing out on? $15 per pay-per-view, or maybe $20 per pay-per-view? But you're really not. Those are people that might not have bought that card anyway.
And I'll be straight up, I don't spend that much on pay-per-views during the year. I maybe buy 2 to 3 UFCs a year at the rate I'm at right now.
Usually I just go out.
Yeah.
To watch.
Yeah, I go to a bar back when I could.
Yeah,
that was
that
was my go-to. I don't purchase a lot of them, but if I had that option, I'd pay extra to do that.
So, right. Felicia Spencer, yeah, she's tough as shit. Cool beans. I'm not here dogging on her, but at the end of that third round, I was trying to make a point that even though there had not been that much damage, what was to be gained? Yeah, what was to be gained by another 2 rounds? She had shown no path, like I said before, no path to victory. She had shown nothing that came close to looking like, oh, hey, this could even work a little bit.
Yeah.
She did nothing to Nunes, right? So in the 4th round, she got cracked a couple more times, and then people started to jump on that bandwagon like, hey, now it's time to throw in the towel. Now it's time, because she almost got finished at the very end of that 4th round where she almost got submitted. And who cares if you lose by a stoppage in the 3rd round or if you go to a decision and get blown out in another 2 rounds? Because that's really what you were deciding between right there. Is like, I'm going to tough it out because I'm tough. That's fantastic. That's what you need to be a fighter. More power to her. But her corner, the doctor even went in there on the 5th round, looked at her and looked, she's good. Great. Fantastic. You're right. She is technically conscious. She's not.
There's not blood in her eye.
There you go.
That's the only measure that we really care about.
So
can she see? All right.
This is not a fight that makes Amanda Nunes look any better. It's just one of those ones. It's similar to the situation that Valentina's in now. Like, everybody they throw up there, like, she just blows them out of the water and makes them look stupid.
Yeah, it was like Tyson fighting all the people that worked in Vander Holyfield. It's like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, all the way up
Except
to
she's already
the 1990s. Exactly.
Yeah. Problem is, she's already beat Evander. So, in this case.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a problem, is like the only challenge she has is a person that she outweighs by 20 pounds. So there's a good argument for her not to retire, but to take a step back and do literally anything else. Maybe they line up a couple more challenges or build up the division and like put together a tournament or something. But they can't keep doing this, man, where like a fighter wins one fight.
Shoot, what was it? It was the Ultimate Fighter back when Demetrius Johnson was in the UFC. They pulled all those people from other champions from other organizations and brought him in.
Yes.
Like, maybe throw one of those together for her.
Do it.
That was actually interesting, and that ended up being a good fight for Demetrius Johnson. Like that was.
He fought last weekend. I forget his name now.
Yeah, but this might be the time to do that. Like,
there's no hype in either one of those divisions. Featherweight basically doesn't exist. Bantamweight exists, but it's so thin it's ridiculous. Felicia Spencer was on a 1-fight win streak, so in other words, not a streak. So she got pieced up by Cyborg, then goes out and wins her next fight by ground and pound against somebody that somebody who was working at JCPenney that could fight that weekend, and so Felicia Spencer beats her up and then gets a title shot. I mean, there's so much parity, I guess I would say. There's so much parity in the 135 division. Like, everybody is just like jockeying for position. Like, they're barely better than the other person, and on any night, anybody could beat anybody. And then there's Nunes all the way up here. Like, she's nowhere near everybody. Everybody else is eking out victories here and there, and not putting together dominant performances. There's nobody that you can point to be like, hey, that might be a good challenge for her. It just doesn't exist right now. So take a step back. She's having a baby soon. She just got married. I mean, she has a farm. Dude, she has plenty of life to go live, and like she says she wants to keep fighting. Well, let's make it interesting for everybody else too, instead of having her beat up like your sister. Like,
yeah. I think it'd be fun to take a year off and actually make like a nice engineered tournament style. Like, let's put together either bantamweight or a flyweight tournament, something. I don't care which division you do it in, probably bantamweight. Put together a bantamweight tournament. Have a couple people that are already in the UFC, and then bring in some people from outside, champions from other organizations, and fucking do like a year-long tournament as a build-up to fight her.
That's the only thing that I see mediocre or like moderately interesting at this point.
Because then no matter who fights her, they have at least a 3-win fight streak, or a 3-fight win streak.
I hope so. Yeah. All right. So Cody Garbrandt's back.
Oh, I feel pretty good about this one.
So Cody Garbrandt, he looked really good. There's against Rafael Sunsao. Rafael Sunsao is notoriously difficult to put away. He makes everybody look bad just because he's so awkward in everything he does. Cody looked amazing. Sunsao's getting up there in age. Is this part of his decline? He hasn't looked the same in his last 3 fights, so he's not the challenge that he was 4 or 5 years ago either. Cody Garbrandt switched camps, and he seemed more measured in this fight, looking a lot better. And the punt again? Mark Henry. Same place as Frankie Edgar and Claudia Gadea. That she just won. He looked great, and I don't like that this was the co-main event. I've never been a fan of hype jobs in the UFC. Cody Garbrandt deserved that hype, obviously, but he had so much behind him, and you could tell, like, one of the things that pissed me off is when he lost the title after winning. He won the title, okay? So TJ defends it 3 times, right, against Renan Barão, Joe Soto, and then he lost it to Cruz on the thing on the third one. He beat Renan Barão, then Joe Soto, then Renan Barão again. So he defends it twice, loses a very close split decision to Dominic Cruz, does not get an immediate rematch. Okay, fine. Cody Garbrandt beats Dominic Cruz. Then Cody Garbrandt gets knocked out by TJ, and then Cody gets an immediate title, like an immediate rematch for some reason, and then gets knocked out again. And like that's one of those things where like you can tell when the UFC is clearly trying to push somebody, where it's like it's not that they keep giving them favorable matchups, which they will also do. It's that you can clearly see like, hey, we put marketing dollars into this guy, so we're going to go ahead and give him the title shot again, even though like historically he, based off of the last 5 decisions we made, like he should not be getting that. Even when he got the title shot, he had not put together a resume that some other people had. So,
but he was excited. Like, the answer is always, is he exciting? And that was the thing. Like,
sure.
Like, that's a factor. Is he exciting? Is he putting together knockouts? Like, that's always going to kind of be a little level of trump card. Of if someone strings together a couple knockouts, it's always going to have a little bit more weight than someone stringing together a bunch of great technical decisions.
Well, that's the problem I have with this win, because it's good on him that he got this win, and great finish right at the bell. Super cool. I mean, it was a wild punch. It's not a lucky punch. He threw it. It was measured. It was just a wild punch, a wide looping shot from behind his back.
With that dip, though, that was pretty sweet. You got to admit it. No. It was cool. The real problem I have with this win is the fight that happened before. Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen. That was the number 1 contender fight. If not, that should have probably been the title fight. This Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo bullshit. Whatever. The UFC is going to UFC. But Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen are both on great win streaks.
Sandhagen a little bit longer of a win streak, but Aljamain's, but they're both like clearly
Beasts.
number one and number two. If I know that Peter Yan is up there, I don't care. These two have put together the resume. They have put together the performances to show that like these guys are the next guys up. These two, and they fought each other on the same card, but they were not the co-main event. Even though they're the same weight class, and clearly this is the number one title, the number one contender fight, this doesn't get the shine. Instead, it's Cody Garbrandt coming off of 3 knockout losses versus Rafael Assunção. Do you see what I'm saying? Again,
oh no, I don't.
He's
I
getting
know exactly
preferential
what you're
treatment. And now, because of this big knockout, even though Aljamain Sterling puts on an incredible performance, putting Corey
Puts him to sleep. Yeah.
You know, Corey's a tough son of a bitch too. Like he was like, I'm thinking about tapping. Then as he's passing out, he's like, okay, like, and he fell asleep. So, and then after the fight, Corey Sandhagen goes up to Aljo, and he goes like, all right, now go win the belt. Like that's pretty freaking cool because I want to see them fight again. I do. I want to see that. And the problem is with Cody Garbrandt getting that stupid knockout. Now all of a sudden, now he's going to be in the title picture. Watch. Come 2 weeks from now.
That? Have Cody fight Corey.
No.
Why not? Like, I think that's reasonable.
No.
Have Cody fight Corey.
There's a whole bunch of contenders in that division that he could be fighting, that he needs to fight. Just because he gets one win back, like he's coming off of 3 bad losses.
But 2 of them were 4 title shots. Like
one of them he didn't deserve, and he got smoked in that second one.
Yeah. I'm just saying, 2 of them were 4 title shots. Yeah, he probably shouldn't have gotten the immediate rematch since he lost it on his first title defense. Like, but you know,
well, here. You know who I'd rather see him fight? I'd rather see him fight Moraes.
Yeah,
Marlon Moraes. That's a better fight.
I'm fine with him fighting anyone in the top 5. I don't think it's unreasonable for him to fight someone in the top 5. Like, yes, he came off a loss after he lost 2 title shots, 1 title defense, 1 rematch. But like, I don't think it's unreasonable for him to fight within the top 5. He did beat Dominic Cruz in an incredible fashion, and that's something you can't ever take away from him.
4 fights ago.
I know, but still,
like that's like he beat
he's
4 fights ago.
I'm not saying he's the strongest resume in 135. Like, I'm not trying to argue that. I'm just saying
no, he has one of the weakest. He looks terrible now. Like there are so many guys at 135. It's log jammed again, and now that finally Henry Cejudo decides to vacate officially, and he's like, I'm gone by. Now the log jam's finally opening up, and we're gonna get some real fights going on. And now he gets like the UFC is gonna. I'm telling you right now, they're gonna throw his hat into the ring, be like, hey, this guy, boom. Like, it's exactly what they did with Jose Aldo. Did Jose Aldo deserve a title shot again, even though he lost his last fight?
Yeah, that's kind of
weird. No, he didn't. He did not. I even if it's close. Here's the thing: if you say, "Oh, well, he should have won it," fine. It was so close, fine. But he left it. He left so much on the table in his first, and that's his first performance at 135.
I'll admit, the should have won it. That doesn't matter. I don't care about shoulda, woulda, coulda. That doesn't mean you got a title shot if you should have won a fight. You still got to go with the result.
Yeah. So at the very top, we got Marlon Moraes, who is still ranked number 1 because he just won his freaking last fight.
Yep.
Okay. Like, he fought for the title against Henry Cejudo, loses, fights Jose Aldo, wins, and now he's just hung out to dry because the UFC doesn't want to push him right now. Cool. Then we got Aljamain Sterling, Peter Yan, Corey Sandhagen, Rafael Assunção, who just lost, so he's going to drop down, Jose Aldo, Pedro Munoz, who just beat Cody Garbrandt. Like, you got Jamie Rivera, and then you got Cody.
All right. So here's my idea. All that factored in. First of all, let's scrap the title fight that we have right now, because that's ridiculous. And it should be Marlon Moraes versus Aljamain Sterling for the title.
Yeah, that's way better than this one. Or Peter Yan versus Aljo. That's good too.
And either one of those 2. And then have Corey fight either Rafael or Peter Yan, whoever, one of those other top contenders that's not fighting for the title. And then have Jose Aldo fight Cody Garbrandt.
Yes,
That would be
Jose
a fun.
Aldo fighting Garbrandt makes
That
more
would be a
sense.
fun fight.
They're both coming. So Cody's coming off of one win out of his last 4 fights. So he's 1-3.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
Jose
just
is
what
coming
it
off of a
is.
loss.
He's coming off of his first loss, a split decision loss, but whatever. He's coming off a loss. Have them fight.
Yeah,
That makes sense to me. Ugh.
I
Anyway,
don't.
all
I
right.
wholeheartedly agree. All right.
So that's one of the reasons. Like that's why I was mad. Like when he knocked him out like that, I'm like, oh great, here we go again. Now these guys who have been working their ass off, getting incredible wins, and putting together these amazing resumes are going to get passed over by the UFC's golden
Fight
child
machine.
again.
Yeah.
It's just it's frustrating to watch that shit because like these guys put so much work in, and they both. It's not this isn't going to be the first time they get passed over either. I
No.
really hope this doesn't happen, and I hope I'm wrong. But they got passed over by Jose Aldo to fight for the title. Both of these guys.
Jose Aldo's lost his last 2 fights. Not even his last fight.
Yes. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Who did he fight before that? He fought. Volkanovski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lost his last 2.
Fought. He lost the fight at 145, drops down to 135, loses a split decision, and then gets a title shot. Yes, that makes sense. Anyway, all right. Congrats to Cody, though. He's back. I think he looks great, and I would love to see him keep fighting in. Like, I would love to see him put together at least one more win before they put him in that title, even that title contender picture. Right? I want to see one more performance out of him because on any given night, yes, he could knock someone out. He hits really fucking hard.
I think
this
in that
is not
division,
heavyweights. Okay, this is
in
not
that division,
heavyweight.
in that division, no matter who you are, you have to at least be on a 3-fight win streak before you're making it.
Yes.
Incredible title run. And even I'm saying like a run. Cody's not there.
No.
He's not even close. He's got a ways to go.
This division is almost as deep. It's getting to the point where it's almost as deep as 155 is. And in 155, we all know how you have to get a title. You know, if your name's not Conor McGregor, and that's the thing. If Cody was some guy who was selling massive pay-per-views and had his own, I don't know, whiskey company or some shit like that, or tattoo brand, I don't know, pick a thing. If he had all that going on, and you could kind of hand wave some stuff and be like, all right, the UFC's playing the money game. Maybe this is how this works. Let's just get through this so we can move on with our lives. But he doesn't have that going either. He's literally just somebody they picked out early, and they're like, we're going to put all of our chips behind this guy. Oh, shit, he got knocked out. Okay, put him back up. He got knocked out again. Oh, poo. Let's try one more time. Knockout? Damn it.
I wonder how much him being a part of Team Alpha Male and Uriah Faber being behind him really influenced the UFC into putting him forward. Because I think that might have been a factor.
Probably a little. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah, UFC has always had a pretty good relationship with that gym in general. Like,
so yeah, I mean, Cody Garbrandt, amazing performance, and I'm happy for him that he's back in the win streak. This is not to say that I'm mad that he won. That's not what I'm saying. Like, good for him. Like, he looks great. It's just, I know what this kind of win means, and Aljamain Sterling has put together an incredible win streak, and he really deserves that title shot. Like, because he's gonna be the champ, man.
Hold up. What if you ran back Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz?
That's a good fight too.
Ooh, I think that
has history.
Yeah, and Dominic Cruz is in a position where you can get a title shot. He's coming off a loss too, and it wasn't. There's a lot of controversy behind it. That would be a good fight. I want that. Give me Dominic Cruz versus Cody, because I think Dominic wants to get back in the ring.
I'd be okay with that too. I'd also like to see Jose Aldo versus Dominic Cruz just for history. I'd like. I know they're not at their peak anymore, but I still think it would be a fun fight to watch. Okay, so Neil Magny.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I don't know who gave him all 3 rounds, but those 2 judges weren't watching. It doesn't matter. Neil Magny definitely won that fight. Incredible performance again. He looked amazing, and dude, he's a 5-round fighter. I know he fights at welterweight, so it's kind of log jammed there a little bit, but he has the ability to really ruin people's nights. because like what he does. He's not trying to put you out with one big shot. He's not trying to. He just wears you down over time. And to a lot of people in the welterweight division, that's kind of poison to them. I mean, seeing some like him versus, I think him versus another cardio monster would be interesting. I think him versus
Kobe. I mean, he's a little.
Kobe would be fun.
I don't know if that's too far of a step back for Kobe, but then
it is. He's not going to do that. Neil Magny needs to go on like it's just because he doesn't get exciting victories and he doesn't talk a lot of shit. So he has to put together a lot of wins before he gets considered for that kind of position. That's all. Good for him. Awesome. Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, that was a solid walk-off knockout.
Yeah, great performance again. Eddie Wineland, I think at this point in his career, he's getting a little bit too like. Here's the problem with this win is it doesn't show anything about Sean O'Malley again. Like he got another quick victory against a guy who isn't at the top of his game.
They threw him a classic journeyman to a very skilled young up-and-comer. I mean,
that's good.
That was
they're doing it right, and I think this is an awesome win for Sean O'Malley, and I think they are bringing him up the right way. This is a good case of, hey, this kid's got a lot of talent. Let's give him a challenge. Not the champion, not some guy who just fought for a title. Let's give him a challenge. Cool. He passed that challenge. Cool. Let's give him another challenge. Someone who's a little bit more difficult or someone who's stylistically maybe not the best matchup for him. That kind of thing. And that's what they're doing with him, and it's working out really well, and he's slowly becoming like a real big star. So I'm excited to see what he does because he's also in the bantamweight division. Right?
Yeah.
All right, and then
which is actually probably a good thing because then you can really take your time with him. It's so log jammed. Don't rush him. Just let him work his way up.
Yes, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
So then we had Alex Caceres just having fun out there and beats up some little kid who wandered into the octagon.
Poor guy.
So this is the opposite of what they're doing with Sean O'Malley. Chase Hooper is so green. Like clearly he has the skills to be in the UFC. Okay? I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. You know, anybody who works their way to get that opportunity and they take it, like who's going to be mad about that? That's awesome. It's fantastic for him. That being said, giving him someone who's fought, 10, 12 fights in the UFC and is a really good striker with the ability to keep it up on the feet.
Yeah. No joke.
That's not a good matchup for Hooper. And even if Hooper worked his way on the inside, which he did multiple times, like Caceres, he's not stupid. Like he knows what Hooper's going to try and do. And he was able to really piece him up for all 3 rounds. Good win. I like watching Alex Caceres. I love that he's in the UFC. I love that he keeps his style no matter how many times it gets him in trouble. He might never win a title, and that's completely fine. He's fun, man. All right, we had Ian Heinisch knocking out Gerald Meerschaert. Big punch, great win. It doesn't really tell me much at middleweight with those two. You're only like 3 big wins in that division, and you're good.
Yeah, and as we go through this card, I just kind of agree with you more and more. This should have just been a really good fight night card.
Yeah,
like I think I was hyped up by enjoying watching it and the good kind of the wins and results and everything. But yeah, talent wise, this should have just been a fight night card.
So then we had the most another. It seems like the UFC now, like Ashley brought it up. She's like, everybody's got to have a sad story, and it's. I don't feel that way. I feel like, people have sad things that happen, and when they bring them up, like I don't find anything wrong with that. She just gets annoyed when that becomes the main thing. But Cody Stamann versus Brian Kelleher. I was rooting for Brian Kelleher. I did not know about Cody Stamann's brother. Cody Stamann's 18-year-old brother passed away last week. and they actually didn't know what happened. They didn't get the the coroner's report back. So like, well, he still didn't know when he was fighting. Like they didn't know how his brother died, and you could tell like he was very emotional after the fight. Great performance by him.
Yeah.
Brian Kelleher started to pick it up, and I think 5 rounds Kelleher can do some damage and really put it on some people. And I'm still excited for Brian Kelleher. I think in the featherweight division he's actually he's not even they fought at featherweight, but he's not a featherweight. They didn't cut weight. This was also a bantamweight fight. Yes, it was. They both fight at 135. So again, another bantamweight fight.
And I will say on that one, like, I think that's all different than the Walt Harris fight card, to where that was like,
because that was the main event, though.
Yeah, I'd say that was like the theme of the night, was just focusing on that, on him overcoming that tragedy. But like, that was part of the entire production, was highlighting that. Whereas this was just like something crazy that happened in this guy's life like a week before.
Yeah.
And I think the Walt Harris event kind of showed how dangerous it is to make that the storyline, because that's.
Yeah, when it ends,
just
like,
made me
you don't know how to feel.
I was just sad. I love Overeem, but I was just sad. So I was like, damn. You couldn't fix this one. Out of all the fights people accuse of being fixed, like, you couldn't fix this one? Come on.
Come
Give
on.
me this
Just
one.
pay him some more money and get him to throw this one. Like, he even got hit big. Like, everybody would have believed it. It wouldn't have been that, like, unbelievable. He gets hit one time, drops down, and be like, I'm knocked out. I'm knocked out and stuff, and I definitely can't get back up. Darn it.
And it's over.
Checks in the
He
mail.
gets knocked out all the time. It's
exactly
extremely plausible. Just have him get clipped. All right.
A stiff wind knocks that guy out, dude. Like, so at the interview, I remember like Joe Rogan started tearing up and stuff, and then like it's super emotional. I'm happy that he got the win, and even, like Brian Kelleher afterwards, he was like telling us, like, he was like, I can't believe what this guy went through to get here. That's amazing. He's like, your brother's definitely like your brother would be proud of you, man. So the UFC is just tugging on everybody's heartstrings the last couple of weeks. It seems like we can't get through a fight card without like an epic tragedy. It's so bad. Maki Pitolo, I heard Maki Pitolo knocked Charles Byrd out. Like, that was pretty freaking cool. Yeah, big. Like, he's got some big punches in his hands. Like, he's and Byrd ended up retiring. Like, he's I think he was in his late 30s. But Pitolo's fun. That's gonna be a fun guy to watch at middleweight. Alex Perez. Oh, he ends up knocking out Juicy Formiga. So Juicy Formiga is coming on some hard times. A couple losses in a row here. He has a win over Davison Figueiredo, who is the uncrowned champ or whatever from not making weight. And my kids are dancing in the background, super cool. So that was fun. Devin Clark versus Alonzo Menafield, the biggest fight of the card. Biggest guys, and of course it went to a decision, because that's how things work in this world. The bantamweights knock each other out and the light heavyweights hug each other for 15 minutes.
So they're afraid to hit each other.
Herbert Burns, Gilbert's brother, looked pretty good. Yeah, Evan Dunham's he's no slouch. He ended up submitting him. Good.
Solid rear naked choke. Yeah, there was a lot of good finishes on this card as a whole. That's kind of what I enjoyed. Yeah,
I'm excited to see more about Herbert Burns. I want to see what he does in the future. It's going to be interesting to see him come up and see if he has. It's usually, if brothers are fighting, there's usually one brother or sibling. Sorry, there's one sibling who is so far superior than the other, and it's not like that means that the other one's garbage. It just means that one is clearly way better and like championship caliber, and the other one is like middling contender. And again, there's nothing to.
Yeah, Pettis and
actually Sergio Pettis.
He's pretty, and that's what I mean.
Pretty
freaking good. Yeah, and I think that always gets highlighted by the age, like, because you always see one brother's going to have a certain number of years of experience, and until he gets near the end of his career, you don't see the other brother kind of catch up. So
yeah, that's true.
Think of how long Nate was in Nick's shadow until he kind of
Yeah.
broke out and became his own. Yeah.
Yeah, I still think Nick is far superior. I still think he's way better than Nate. I think he's better than Nate ever was or ever will be.
Nate definitely came
Yeah,
into
he's
his own. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. There's been lots of brothers that like and the Shevchenkos, the sisters. I mean, that's pretty evident, Like when you have someone who is Antonina, no slouch. She's a good fighter. But Valentina is the best. So
some kind of former special agent and foreign intelligence service. Like she just has a better, a little bit better background.
Yeah, there's something special going on with that chick. Like she is nuts, man. Like and and everything she does, like she like shooting weapons, like oh my god, she's terrifying.
Yeah, just follow her on Instagram and be impressed by everything she does. That's all you got to do.
She can dance better than you and anybody you know. She can fight better than you and anybody you know. And then she could kill you in more ways than you possibly could imagine. She's so scary. All right. We have a card coming up. Let's go over this and then we'll cover some
there's been some news recently.
A little bit. Let's cover this first. Then we get this out of the way.
Before we start talking about Masvidal.
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah, we can go into ranting fighter pay stuff.
Let's hit this news.
So this card that's coming up is happening. So I think the UFC has officially run out. Like they're back to like putting on regular fights now. No more stacked cards. I think we saw it this past weekend that that was kind of like the tail end of, hey, these are all the good fights that we have. I'm sure that obviously there's going to be more good fights coming this year. It's just they blew their wad really early when they came back. What fine.
There's also a lot of travel restrictions still. There's a lot of fighters that are
Yes. So you got Jessica Ai fighting Cynthia Calvillo.
Headlining it.
This fight does nothing for me. It does nothing. I've seen Jessica Ai. She's a middling contender.
On this card do something for you? Let's just
so main event, blah. The co-main actually does something for me. So Carl Roberson's no joke. He's good. Marvin Vettori is pissed the fuck off. So his fight got canceled the week of was it 2 weekends ago? And it was pretty dramatic. I think actually it was on the Overeem. It might have been the Overeem card. I remember he came at the guy. You guys can check it out. Look up Marvin Vettori on YouTube or Instagram. And like in the hotel, the other guy he was supposed to fight was walking through. Like he had to pull out because he didn't feel well because of his weight cut. And he's walking, and Marvin Vettori just goes after him. Like he didn't throw any punches at him, he didn't attack him or assault him. He's just screaming at him. And he's like, "Come on, fight me now, then. If you're so fine, fight me now." Like, dude, you could hear the pain in his voice. Like
he's probably desperate for that cash.
Well, that's what I'm. Well, he's been in fight camp for like 5 months now or something crazy, and he's just like, he made weight. He did everything he was supposed to do. And now
he's not a big enough name for someone else to step in.
And he's not going to get paid now.
Yeah.
Like this guy, Marvin Vettori, took Israel Adesanya to a split decision. It wasn't a split decision. It shouldn't have been a split decision. But I'll tell you,
he held in there.
This guy stood in there with Israel for 3 rounds. Like he's no joke, dude. This guy's really good, and I don't know how much him being mad is going to affect him in this fight, but I'm actually very interested in that one. The next fight's actually also fun too. Merab.
I was excited when I saw Ray Borg on there.
Well, Merab is actually really good. I think he fights out of the Longo camp, Longo Serra, and he's insanely good. It like all the talk of
another
the
great
camp.
bantamweight fight.
Yeah, so he's one of those guys that in his camp, like everybody talks like he's fucking crazy. Like this is the next guy. Like he's nuts, and he's really good. Andre Touchy Feely, I just like him for his nickname. He's fun to watch too. Mark De La Rosa, meh. Espinoza, meh. Charles Rosa, he's fighting again already. He's the black belt in
Huh.
jiu-jitsu, the one who got twisted up and all the. I think he was the one. Yeah, he was the one who got put in like the twister
Yeah.
like 5 times.
He's fighting again.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I
Tyson
guess
Nam,
I guess if they're hurt for people, why not?
and the rest of the people on this card. So there's like 3 fights on this card that I'm gonna watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
But
I'm
super
more excited
excited
for
to
the
see.
next fight night card after that. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we can talk
It's
about that one later. I love Blades, so that's like.
that's
So
your
you
boy.
talk about you talk about card. You talk about freaking what's this? Justin Gagey. Like I'm just a huge fan of his. Like Curtis Blades sent me a shirt and like text me like that guy that's my guy. I don't care what he does. Like that, I'm a huge fan forever, and he's insanely
I
skilled.
can attest. You've been talking about Curtis Blades for like 5 years.
I
It's
know because he's
yeah,
so fucking good. And he sent me a shirt, so like there's
yeah.
I can't. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about the shit that's going on. So holy crap, man.
I've
There,
been I've been thinking
I'm
about this.
well, here, I'll just set the stage and I'll let you go. I might throw in like my 2 cents right away because, all
Please
right. So
go right ahead.
first we have Henry Cejudo saying, I retire. Um, Everybody thought it was just a money play, and it kind of seems like it is, but it also seems like a very loose one. It seems like he's okay with retiring because they're not paying him as much as he wants to get paid. So it's just a little bit different than a money play to me. It's almost like a, hey, you know what? I'm okay in my life right now, and if you want to pay me a ton more money to come back and fight, I'll do that. But as of right now, dude, I'm done. Like there's nothing for me right now, so I'm okay with that.
He could probably go
Then
make more being a college wrestling coach somewhere.
that's fine, and good for him, man.
He might legit make more doing that.
All the cringe and all that other stuff that I disliked and that like I wasn't a huge fan of. I was a fan of his when he first started in MMA. I was super excited for his rise, even when he fought DJ. Like super excited. Still a fan of his. I think what he did was incredible. Just not a fan of the cringy shit. It's just not my thing. Like it's so fake, and I don't like that. Same reason why I don't like Colby Covington doing that stuff. Like I love him watching him fight. I hate hearing him talk.
Oh yeah.
So you have Henry Cejudo retiring on top after defending the belt, the bantamweight belt, right? So then John Jones gets his tizzy and a hizzy. So he goes back and forth with Dana White, basically saying, like they had a whole fight. We talked about this before. It ends with him saying, "Release me. I'm retired." Like, I mean, he doesn't say he's retiring. He's saying, like, "Release me." He's like, "Call my bluff, then release me. I don't want to fight for you anymore." Like, whatever. And he vacates the light heavyweight belt. Okay. Then this past weekend we have Jorge Mas or past week, maybe yeah, we have Jorge Masvidal saying, I've got nothing left to prove. I'm not gonna fight again until they pay me more money. Like I want and then he says like, I want market share. He's like, I'm looking for a revenue share. I'm not looking for a pay raise. And then today or last night, Conor McGregor retired again, and he's like saying like, it's been fun. I retired. Blah blah blah. Real quick, I'm just gonna say this. Guess what, guys? UFC doesn't fucking need you. All right, go ahead.
All right.
I don't hate it. I'm just telling you.
So here, it's too early. Here's my idea on this. And if there was any sort of thought of organization fucking talking to each other in terms of UFC fighters, this should be happening right now. Your time for fucking negotiation and kind of putting the UFC in a hard place isn't right now. It's when NFL is back. It's when NBA is back. It's when those other sports are back in the limelight and everyone's talking about it. And the UFC needs its stars. It fucking, like, when the UFC really needs its people to put on fights, that's when you go, yo, you remember when we bailed you out when no other sports were happening and we were putting on fights and kept you afloat? Now we want to talk. Now we want to put together a fighters association. Like, if they just kind of waited until the latter part of this year and really put some pressure on the UFC, I think they could actually be in a place to where they could get something that the fighters never had a chance of getting before. So I think the UFC will be in a uniquely bad position in the sports world.
I mean, I don't disagree with what you said, but I also think that, okay, so first off, like
It's
what
not,
I said,
yeah.
so what I said, I still stand by. The UFC doesn't fucking need you. They don't.
Yes.
They control the narrative. They control everything. They put on the fights. They don't need you. They have all the power. You're not an independent contractor, despite what they call you.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're not an employee because you don't get benefits. Okay, Tim Sylvia, this plays into this. Tim Sylvia over the week, last week, he posted pictures. He was like his screws in his plate. So he got his arm broke by Frank Mir. One of the most incredible finishes. Like,
Yeah.
Frank, if you give your arm to Frank Mir, I don't care who you are. Like, that's a terrible idea. He's gonna break it. He's taking it home with him. He broke Nogueira's and he broke Tim Sylvia's. So he
broke
snapped.
Nogueira's.
Dude, yeah, he snapped his humerus, and he snapped Tim Sylvia's radius and ulna. Okay, snapped them in both directly in half, just bam, right, and it would like totally broken in half. So there's the cool story about it. Oh, cool, interesting story. Like, we went to the doctor to get a plate put in, and the plates were, his arms are so big that they had to use a plate that they normally use for shins, like a tibia and a fibia.
Yeah.
So anyway, they put that plate in. Well, cut to like what, 12, 15 years later, however much later this is, the screws are backing themselves out of the plate and they're coming through his skin, and they're opening up wounds. It's not great, not a great look. I mean, obviously it's open wound and can cause infection and whatever. So he just asked the UFC, like, hey, this happened during a fight. Like, I was fighting for you guys, and like I got this fixed because it got broke while I was fighting, and now the fix is unfixing. So can you pay to get this fixed again? And the UFC is like, no. So if that doesn't show you exactly like how they feel about you or your services, like, then nothing, I don't know what will. So now if you think for a second that the UFC is going to bat an eyelash when you say I'm retiring, you're fucking out of your mind. You're crazy. They don't give a shit about you. They don't care about pay-per-view anymore, as we can see by last weekend.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're making money.
It's not about you retiring. It's you actually using your influence on other fighters and getting them behind you.
Yeah.
That would be what, if you like, as much as people don't pay attention to prelims or like don't care about that shit, if you use your position and get those guys, those girls on board with you to say, hey, you're going to have empty fight cards. You're not going to be able to put together fight nights for ESPN. You're not going to be able to uphold, like, when you actually put that kind of pressure on them, that's where they actually have to start questioning their model and figuring that out. And until you do that, you're not going to.
I don't think that's possible. It's I don't know. I actually don't. This is one of the things where I don't know enough. Like, I know the history, so I'm more familiar with the NFL than I am with the NBA as far as like their initial like players association type of deal and how it formed. And I remember like distinctly like learning about that one, but I can't remember why they had the ability to do it, because they had that lockout season too. But I can't tell you what gave them the ability to do it, because they weren't making money. Like, the NFL players were not making money. I mean, they were getting paid, like quarterbacks were making good money, like decent, like a couple $100,000 maybe, as much as like a doctor, like a really good doctor, a well-paid doctor, or like a CEO of a mid-sized company, right? Okay, like that's nothing to turn your nose up at. I'm not saying that that's a bad living. That's fantastic, getting to play the game you love and getting paid a couple $100,000. That's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that, and the endorsements and all the things that come with that. But like the guys on the lower end, they still had jobs. Most of them still had jobs up until pretty recently. So I don't think the UFC, I don't think UFC fighters, I don't think MMA fighters in general have the ability to hold out like that, because a lot of these guys.
Well, here's what I'm going to throw at you. The lower end fighters, they still have jobs.
Okay.
Most of the lower end fighters are not necessarily relying on the UFC. Yeah, they want to make their name. Like
That's true.
a
Okay.
lot, it's kind of that mid tier veterans, like the guys that are lower part of the top 10, maybe on the breach of like hitting the top 10. There's probably like 100 fighters in the UFC that really like the UFC is their sole source of income. Maybe I could be completely wrong on that number, but like,
Well, that's what 20% of their fighters.
roster, yeah,
Eh, maybe.
that
Yeah. I
that
mean, that's a good get. That's a good round number. That's
yeah.
fine.
So even if you got half of those guys on board with you, and you kind of got to like sell it to people as it's gonna hurt for a year, but it's gonna hurt for a year the same way as if you got injured and weren't having fights for the next year. Because like that also happens to those UFC fighters in the same position. Like they get injured in training camp and then sometimes they don't fight for a year. Like you kind of got to sell it to use like, we may not fight for a year, all of us, but when we come back from it, we're gonna have a deal to where it's worth it. Your earnings for the next 5 years are going to make up for the fact you didn't fight for this year in a way that like you got to have someone actually take the lead on it and lay it out to everyone as like, we need to make a deal where it's beneficial for everyone from the top down.
I mean, that's one way to do it, and like it could work. But I also think that, like, because do you remember a couple years ago? It's probably like 3 or 4 years ago when Rampage fought in Bellator,
Yeah.
and then fought in the UFC, and then fought in Bellator again, and like he had that weird like
He kind of
like
had a weird part of his career after losing to Rashad.
well, it wasn't that. It was he had like his contract was like up in the air and very strange, like the way it was worded. I'm wondering if the fighters can take advantage of that and leverage that by or go fight for one. Do you think one would just hire a bunch of these guys? I do. Like they've got the same amount of I think they've got the same amount of money to pay fighters. They clearly pay them well.
Yeah.
Otherwise these fighters wouldn't be going over there. And now like you're over in, Asia. So you could fight the rest of your career there and never have to come back. So this whole thing where
People
like
do.
well, yes, but what I'm saying specifically is like when you still have a contract, people are very they don't want to do it because they're like, oh, I'll get blackballed and I won't be able to fight in any state because the UFC has a contract and but if they go do it in another country, dude, nobody gives a shit. Like they're not going to give a shit over there.
Yeah.
They just want you.
If one expands into, Abu Dhabi more and they're doing fights there and fights in the UAE, like you're gonna fill up stadiums there.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I like this thing. It's just I don't know. Maybe I'm just tired because I was outside I was golfing today and like we were out there forever, and I like thinking about this makes me more exhausted. Like
the UFC has issues now that it's had since before the Reebok deal and before the ESPN deal and before all these different deals that have helped the organization but not really helped the fighters.
No, none of these things have helped the fighters.
And that's really where the crux that's where the crux of the issues are coming in. You're not getting deals that are helping fighters, and you're not getting people just aren't communicating, aren't talking, aren't trying to organize in a way that puts any pressure on the UFC. They can survive 1 or 2 stars walking out. They'll always be able to. But, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean the fighters can't do something if they put their mind to it.
So what I'd like to see the fighters do, honestly, is really, really take off. Like just go. And then the UFC is going to have to do some soul searching. Because we know how much they pay fighters.
I've thought of a model that I actually think would work for the UFC, and I really have. I've taken some time to think about this, and you could essentially structure
all paying them more than 20%.
Yes.
Oh.
So it would be a structured deal to where you kind of have you have different tiers. So your first tier would be a rookie contract, and it would be like a 6-fight rookie contract. And under that contract, kind of the same with the NFL, like that's your suite. The UFC is making its money off of this contract. You're not getting a pay-per-view percentage. You're getting this fixed rookie amount. It's not life-changing money, but it gets your foot in the door in the UFC, and it lets the UFC see if you're going to be, a potential star. So after those 6 fights, you get your lower end, your journeyman's contract, and that's where if you're in a journeyman's contract and you're fighting on a main card, you're getting at least some percentage. Everyone fighting on a main card gets a percentage regardless. It's not going to be the same as the headliner. It's not going to be the same as who's, fighting for a championship. But even the guys starting out on the main card are getting 1% of the pay-per-view buys.
But the pay-per-views are so garbage now, though.
I know. But, I mean, I'm just talking some kind of like actual revenue percentage sharing. So whether it's pay-per-view buys or
ads,
subscription, something.
No, give the fighters
ads.
the freaking let them get sponsored again, and it's going to solve. I think
that's another part of the deal. You have to just completely get rid of that whole no sponsorship shit.
Because if you think about it right now, right? They were on Fox, now they're on ESPN. Now they're getting more coverage than they ever have. It's more in the mainstream than it ever has been. Even when we were growing up, like when the UFC was like big and everybody was talking about it, let's be honest, it's not as big as it is now. It is bigger now than it was then.
How many companies folded and how many people got laid off because they got rid of that?
You mean the pay-per-view model?
No, I just got rid of the advertising model.
Oh. I don't know. Like dynamic fastener, like I still don't know what the hell that is. I have never Googled it.
But like, I feel like there's a lot of companies that I don't think exist anymore, or at least had to have downsized massively after the loss of that. I don't know. It's just something I never really thought about.
But with the amount of exposure that these fighters are given, being on primetime television, they would make more money from the sponsorships now. They just would. And
no one cares about the Reebok hits.
It would solve so many issues. Like it would allow the fighters who are willing to grind and really go out and, obviously they still have to do the fighting. But if they have an agent, they have an agent or they go out and do the grinding, like getting good sponsors, making sure that like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing this. How much are you going to pay me to do this?
Dude that wants the camo shorts could have had Cabela shorts from the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah. He could have had freaking Cabela's or, Bass Pro Shops, whatever company he wanted to go with. He could have had those shorts from the get-go.
And this fighter pay thing, it's always been bad. It's going to be bad for the foreseeable future. And a lot of way to mitigate that is to allow the fighters to make money on their own, and they can't go fight anywhere else. Okay, that's out of the picture. They're not gonna they can't get a job because if they're working a job, they can't focus on fighting. Okay, so that's out.
It's like the same step with the NCAA. Allow them to make money on their own, even if you're not going to pay them. Let them make money off of their name, off their image.
Sure. Why not? That's
let them accept fucking whatever. Let them make money.
Yeah. I don't know how you could own something more than your own face. Like I can't think of another thing in this world that you own more of than your body. Like just let them make money. Yeah. I don't understand. Like the Reebok deal, not that I don't understand it. I do understand why the UFC did that. It was branding. They got a big company involved, and they sold for $4 billion. Cool beans, awesome sauce, great. But the fighters have been getting screwed. They're still getting screwed. I mean, nobody wants the Reebok hits. Like they look better than they did before. I'm not buying one. They're fucking insanely expensive, and the fighters see none of it.
I've never bought one, and I've never seen one.
No, I've never seen anybody wear one.
No one has ever been at the gym working out in a Reebok kit.
No, I don't see one. I don't see one at like anybody who watches fights at a bar. I don't see like when I go to we went to fights, nobody's wearing them.
Do you
dude.
know what I did see back in the day? Affliction shirts everywhere. They made listen.
I
That's
had a
not
few.
necessarily, and that's not necessarily tap out shirts. I
I never
saw
had
it,
one of those. Never
but I'm
once.
saying like that was everywhere when I was in high school.
Yeah, because it was like underground.
Yeah,
It was like part of like fight culture, and it
yeah.
became like synonymous
No,
with the UFC.
yeah. No one that owned or still owns an Affliction shirt or tap out shirt has ever bought a Reebok kit.
No,
Yeah,
why
period.
would I?
Yeah,
I don't wear my like I don't actually don't have any Affliction shirts left. I think because they were all so small. Like I bought them when I was tiny, so like I gave them all to my little brother. But I still have a hoodie somewhere, and I like the way it looks. Like, and if I could find it, I would wear it sometimes. The point is, if a fighter was to create something, like I bought Angela Hill's shirt. You know, I bought
yeah.
stuff from Brendan Schaub. I've bought stuff from Cub Swanson. I like his, Killer Cub shirt. Um, Curtis Blades. I have his shirt. I didn't have to buy it though. I don't know if I mentioned he sent me the shirt.
Did he send you a shirt?
I
Are you guys
am
best friends?
insufferable. You know what? I think so.
Oh,
No, he doesn't know who I am, and it's fine. I don't care. I'm just a huge fan of his. Anywho, I don't know if I said that earlier, but
mm,
I'm willing to like purchase
yeah,
shirts that clearly show that that fighter can sell things. So even if it's just a sponsorship deal from that fighter, like, hey, use my code and get 20% off. That's at least giving one, they get kickback, they get direct revenue from that. And then I know that me spending that money gives them that amount of money. Or if and let's be honest, their designs are 1,000 times better. I'm not walking around in a UFC fight kit. I'm just fucking not. Okay.
yeah,
But in a cool looking shirt with a bomb ass design on it, I will for sure wear that.
yeah. Absolutely.
So just give give them the right to wear stupid shorts again. I don't care. They're fighting in a fucking cage. Like any old curmudgeon who thinks that these it was really sloppy when they had like Condom Depot on their butt. Fine. You think that looks silly? Great. I
Have
don't.
you seen the octagon recently?
Yeah. Fuck you. Now
Have
they
you
just
seen
put
what the
Condom Depot
floor
on
of
the
the
octagon.
octagon looks like when there's blood when there's blood all over the P3 protein snack?
Yeah.
Freaking low. Like, I'm sorry, does that look
Yeah.
better?
Yeah.
Is that
I have to
is
sit
that
through 30
classier?
minutes. I have to
What?
sit through 30 fucking minutes of P3, the official protein snack of the UFC, and Modelo. Like, I have to sit through 30 minutes of that shit every fight night, but a fighter can't make some money on his own by slapping
Name,
Condom Depot on his butt. I don't care. Let him do
name
it.
one UFC fighter that's ever eaten a P3 protein pack after he weighed in and before the fight.
Cerrone did it in a commercial.
But but was it actually something he refueled his body with after the weigh-in?
No,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
fucking, it's a
It's
Lunchable
fine.
for adults.
Exactly. Let them fucking advertise what they actually use. What they want.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah, like Trevor
I want
Whitman, who works for the UFC. He makes his own gloves.
yeah.
He's like an old lady sewing things in his basement, and he makes his own gloves and
You think
equipment.
you think it's cool when Cowboy, slams a Bud Light? I want to see all the craft breweries that just team up with different UFC fighters. Just
Sure.
yeah, those are great logos. I'll see those on the shorts.
Yeah, he can't even wear that Bud Light stuff anymore because fucking Modelo sponsors the UFC now. Now it's not Bud Light.
Yeah, screw that.
That's
I want
stupid.
him to have Bud Light and then like Three Floyds to sponsor, a UFC fighter. Like, whatever. Cool. What's your
So,
favorite beer? Sponsor.
like, maybe you could put stipulations on it, and I'm okay with some guidelines. Like, hey, Modelo sponsors this, so we're not going to allow competing brands to be sponsoring your fighter. Okay, fine. That's fine. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's sure of a hell lot better than telling them they have to wear these stupid ass Reebok things. And you make how many dollars? Oh, you make $5,000 if you're like an experienced fighter per fight. Good for
Yeah.
you. That's all going to my coaches and taxes. All gone. I make not. I could have made 50 from somebody slapping a logo on my butt, but now I make none of that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do what's crazy? Some of those fighters could get bigger bonuses if they join the military than what they get paid for Reebok as a professional UFC
Yeah,
fighter
you get a
of
40 grand
multiple fights.
bonus 40 grand bonus if you join the SEALs and complete buds.
Yeah,
dude, it's
someone probably could too.
yeah, it's like
exactly like you might want to consider some alternative uses of your physical prowess. You might get paid more.
So these 4 fighters in particular, I mean, the problem is one of them is super cringy, and it clearly looked like a money play, even though it's not. And I have dialed it back a little bit, and I kind of understand where he's coming from. The other one has a track record of being the sketchiest of all sketch, right? Sketchiest fighter possible, with no integrity whatsoever. Hold on, let me take something back. What he's been doing during these riots and stuff, fantastic, dude. Like seeing him pull a spray paint can out of some like rioter's like hand and being like, "What are you doing? Stop that!" And he's like, "Oh, what do you mean I'm not?" He's like, "No, go home." He like just stole the paint can off. So I think that speaks more to what we said before. Like clearly that he has some sort of mental instability, like bipolar disorder, or
I don't think he's a bad person.
Me either.
I do want to clarify that. Like
I don't either.
I've never thought he was a bad person. I just think he's a guy that needs help and struggles. And
that's what I'm saying.
And doesn't have good people around him.
So when I say sketchy of all sketch and least reliable and no integrity, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he's a bad person. I'm just saying all of those things pertaining to getting yourself into the cage and getting ready for a fight, right? So that, and then you have a fighter who is Johnny come lately, like has the bullshit of all bullshit belts. Like you can say whatever you want about an interim title.
He doesn't have a belt. He just had, it was a fun fight.
Fine, and there's a cool fight, and the UFC wanted The Rock to do some shit. Cool beans. I'm okay with a little bit of a showmanship. I'm okay with that, dude. You don't have a fucking belt. Like, first of all, the 2 fighters that are the like bad motherfucker belt, that's Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje, hands down. Everybody else can go suck a nut. Like those 2, that was the BMF belt. Like
yeah, and that fight showed it too. Let's be honest.
That's what I'm saying. Like you want to see 2 guys with heart and no quit. It's those 2, and guys who put their foot on the gas the entire time. So you have a guy who's, like I said, Johnny come lately, just got popular in the last 5 minutes, and he's only moderately popular. I don't think he has transcended the MMA fan base yet. I don't think he's going to be a big pay-per-view draw. I think he is interesting in a couple matchups. I think he's an amazing fighter. But he's
no one has an easy day with him in the ring.
Right. Yeah. And again, his skills speak for themselves. Yeah. But he's not somebody who's, a draw for the UFC. So him, and then you have someone who's retired 3 times already. So all of the things that we've said before in the past 20 minutes kind of are moot when it comes to these 4. Listen, I'm just going to be hyperbolic just for the rest of this time that I'm saying this stuff because it's just easier. These 4 fucking ding-dongs, like retiring, don't mean shit, okay? When you get Daniel Cormier, when you get guys with integrity like
don't retire.
Anthony Smith.
Organize.
Yeah, you get Anthony Smith. You get guys like these up-and-comers. You get guys who've been working their ass off. Khabib Nurmagomedov. You get these guys with nothing but integrity, with nothing but like a wholesome character, and people with an insane work ethic who do not, like I said already, do nothing but put fighting first and put their best foot forward at every opportunity that they have. Just showing that they're good human beings as well as good fighters. When all of them say, "Hey, I'm not fighting anymore because I'm being treated unfairly." Not that they shouldn't do that. Like, I still think like maybe they should do that. Like that would be a good way to get everybody paid more money. And I'm okay with that. What I'm saying is until they start doing that, the UFC doesn't, dude, let's just be honest. Nobody gives a shit.
I have one more problem with it too. And this is probably my biggest problem with it. And it's kind of my biggest problem with everything that I see online. You posting online doesn't mean shit.
No.
If all 4 of them, even just who they are and their background, everything else, if all 4 of them got together and stood up on a stage together and held a press conference to air their grievances together, 6 feet apart, with masks and gloves or whatever. Let's not do the masks. 6 feet apart on a stage. If all of them actually got together, sat together, and held a press conference, that would actually have some impact. That would be meaningful.
Yes.
4 guys blasting Dana White on Twitter for all of
Doesn't
his
mean
flaws and blasting the UFC for all of its flaws. We could sit on here for hours and lay out all the issues of the UFC. And we've done it over the course of hours while we record this podcast. But ultimately, a bunch of tweets back and forth and talking shit and just saying I'm retiring, it does not put pressure. You need to organize. You need to get other fighters on your side. You need to actually stand up and make a statement. Because they are big names. They could actually light that spark, but that's not what they're doing. They're all being
again, hyperbolic. They're throwing temper tantrums, man.
Exactly.
Like every one of them, like, I don't like the way you're treating me. Okay, then leave. Okay, fine, I'll do that then. Bye. Like,
and I'll be honest. Sometimes the temper tantrum aspect of it probably gets stoked a little bit by the UFC
in the media
and how it gets presented. And like, UFC does control that narrative, but just because the UFC controls the narrative doesn't mean there's nothing you can do. If you just let the UFC control the narrative and keep blasting off on Twitter and letting the UFC get under your skin, you're not helping yourself.
No, and you're not helping any of the other fighters either.
No.
By just retiring. Like I said, when you get DC, when you get Daniel Cormier, when you get him to say, "Hey, Dana, this is unfair." Like
get him and John Jones on the same stage saying it's unfair.
Yes,
together. That
would work. That would do 1,000 times more than saying, "Fuck you, Dana." Great, cool. Okay. Is that the end of your statement? That's all you got? 5 years of frustration is "fuck you, Dana." Cool, man. Bye. Come back when you want to fight later. Like, what
get him, Israel, Kamaru Usman, Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, if you got all the champions together right now, and every single one of them said, "Hey, I'm not fighting unless everybody gets paid more,"
and there's so many vacant belts, you could probably do that.
Yeah,
that's not that big of an ask. There's as few champions as there's been in the UFC in a long time. Get them all together.
Yeah, because some of them own more than one.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, you could, at this moment in time, put pressure on the UFC because the UFC, despite being the only show in town, does not have the largest pool to pull from because they can't be flying international fighters in right now. And because they're the only show in town, they get more media buzz. So if they have more disgruntled employees, independent contractors, Jesus. If they have more disgruntled independent contractors, like, that's going to show up, like, and be at the forefront of every news article. Like, there's going to be no choice but to show that. So do that.
And I'm going to throw this out there also. Most of them are African American.
Yeah, good time for that shit too.
I'm going to say it because it's true. And if they're going to try and pull for a fair share from the UFC, because it's not just, and I'll be honest, it's not a race issue UFC fighters not getting paid. It's across the board UFC fighters aren't getting paid.
Yeah.
But, there has been accusations in the past from within the organization of that being an issue with how people interact.
It'll get played.
I know Tyron Woodley said it many times.
Yeah. And John Jones.
John Jones is saying it too. There's probably some credence to that.
So it'll get played. Say it then.
Put it out. Come together. All of you come together. John Jones, Mars, Daniel Cormier. I mean, Cormier is also, he trains with Habib. If Cormier was in, I bet you Habib would be in too.
Yes.
He wants more money. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, that's the best part, is Khabib doesn't need the money.
Exactly.
He's already talked about not fighting.
Yeah. And I guarantee you Conor would be in too, because he doesn't need the money.
Right. They're all bigger like, if Khabib and Conor are both saying, "Hey, screw this noise," I can just sum all this up right now. The biggest problem is there's so many fighters, like, everybody's an individual, like, they're all so individualistic that you're going to have fighters who are like, "I don't fucking care. I'm getting paid to hit someone in the face. Like, I'll fight. I don't care. You can give me $20, I'll do it."
And you don't need everybody. I know. Yeah. But I think from within, who's champion right now is I think there's enough intelligent champions who understand how important it is to get paid and aren't just there to hit people in the face. Like, Kamaru Usman's not just there to hit people in the face. Israel Adesanya is not just
No, he's there to hug him. I'm kidding.
Head out. But you know what I mean?
Kidding.
Like, everyone up at the top right now isn't necessarily that type of fighter. So I think they
fine, but here's the other problem is they're going to be replaced. The UFC does not care. The UFC is the brand. They are the name. So they don't just need to leave. They need to go somewhere else. They really do. They need to take their star power somewhere else so that way no matter what the UFC does, because if they're not fighting, the UFC can still push the narrative and say, like, we still have the best fighters. Look, these are the best fighters. Like,
Connor's talked about opening up a promotion in Ireland. I mean, they could all go fight in the UK.
I'm okay with that. There's already the Cage Warriors over there, but if they want another one, that's fine. But yeah, if they all, like, if literally every single one of those guys just took off and went to one, like, the UFC can no longer say that we have the best fighters. They can't. It's impossible because your best fighters just left to go to another organization, which has not happened. We've had other fighters grow up in other organizations who could be the best and have been. Eddie Alvarez from Bellator. Well, I don't.
Rory's,
Justin Gaethje. Rory was in that title contention and he lost that one of the best fight in UFC history, in my opinion. He lost that fight and he left.
If he stayed in the UFC, he might have ended up with the championship.
He could have, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's never been a definitive, he's the best guy right now, one of the best of all time, and he left to go fight somewhere else. Yeah. Like, the last time that's ever been a thing is not necessarily leaving, but where people were like, I think the best fighter in the world is not in the UFC. The last time that happened was Pride with Fedor and Vanderlei. That's like maybe Dan Henderson even, but that's the last time that happened. And look what happened. The UFC had to buy Pride in order to get everybody to shut up.
If you had Kamaru Usman fighting over in one, and you had Habib fighting for what's the Russian one? Reign or
you're talking about Fedor's M1 Global.
Yeah, M1 Global. If you had Habib fighting in M1 Global, and you had, even if they all didn't go to the same organization, if they just spread out, if you had Israel in one, because he's
from New Zealand anyway. That's as close as you can get.
And he would probably be huge in one. He might actually get paid more going over to one.
I guarantee you they would pay him more. They would just do it.
Yeah.
Like they want the star power.
If you just had that championship walkout, like, I think it would make the case and have a serious effect on the UFC. Cause them to
rethink that's what they have to do. They can't just say we're not fighting because they're going to be replaced. They have to go somewhere else and keep fighting and show.
Think if Francis Ngannou left. If he walked out and went to one, like, if he walked out and Daniel Cormier and Stipe both retired, like, that's
I wouldn't mind for the heavyweight. Wouldn't mind him going to Bellator, but Bellator's based in the United States, and I don't think Bellator would be willing to breach contracts like that. That's the real thing here is KSW, which is in Poland. You got M1 Global, you got ONE FC, you got Dream for whatever shit show that is, or not Dream. What's it called now? Is it Dream? I don't know. Something in Japan.
Jungle Fight, I think, is still in Brazil.
Jungle Fight's in Brazil.
Much sway in Brazil, I think.
So, but here's the deal: all of these places, like the UFC, isn't gigantic there. Yeah. It's like they don't have tons of fights in Poland. They don't have tons of fights in Russia, and they sure as shit don't have tons of fights.
And they're not pulling in pay-per-view numbers from there.
No. So these fighters all go to these different places, despite still being under contract, and the UFC can do whatever the fuck they want, but they don't have to live in the United States anymore either. That's the thing. Is like, what you're gonna do? You come to New Zealand and try to track me down to come get your bullshit contract, because I don't know if those contracts would hold up outside of the United States either. Like some other countries might have different rules,
and those contracts are fishy enough in the United States.
That's what I'm saying. Like they skirt enough of a line in the United States where, like, outside, if you leave, again, I don't know, but maybe you could just, like, first of all, I don't know how much really, like, legally they're going to, like, go after someone, because how are they going to do that? What is the UFC going to try to do to ONE FC or M1 Global? What are they going to try to do?
Legally, if the UFC took on, like, 6 different organizations, I think they're going to run into trouble financially.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is these places, like, these fighters need to go and create enough of that what if question again that we had with Pride. Like, we had that question with Pride. I wasn't, I wasn't big in MMA at the time. Like, I was just as Pride started to tail off and kind of fall. That's when I came into MMA, so I wasn't there. But historically, like, I know enough of the information, and I could tell you that at the time, people didn't know who the best light heavyweight was. People didn't know who the best heavyweight was, and a lot of people thought those two were in Pride, not the UFC.
Yeah.
So right now,
there was a lot of fighters in Pride that ended up being UFC Hall of Famers.
Yes, and champions.
Exactly.
With Rampage, Crow Cop never got the title. Vanderlei never got the title either.
Anderson Silva.
Anderson Silva did fight in Pride. Yes, he did. And then who else? Shogun. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Nogueira, he got the interim title at one point. But
what was his name?
Which weight class?
Fabricio Verdum. Didn't he fight in Pride too?
Yeah, but he stunk.
Yeah.
Oh, he fought in Strike. Yeah, he also fought in Strikeforce. Strikeforce is another one of those ones. But here's the deal. Actually, Strikeforce is another great example. Thank you. You reminded me. Strikeforce had a lot of good fighters, and people are like, I wonder. People were poo-pooing it at the time. Turns out a lot of those guys ended up becoming UFC champions. Luke Rockhold, Jacare.
Tim Kennedy came close. I still in my heart he. In my heart, he beat Il Romero and made a championship run.
DC came from Strikeforce. Dan Henderson came from Strikeforce too. Or I think he fought in Strikeforce as well. But the point with all that is, like, there was a question to whether or not the UFC had the best talent. Right now, that question really isn't there. Douglas Lima a little bit, like, because he hasn't fought in the UFC and he didn't leave the UFC, so we didn't get to see him against like UFC opponents, so we don't really know. But we did see him beat Rory McDonald, a depleted Rory, but Rory nonetheless. Okay, like, and then you get the Patricio, like the Pitbull brothers, Patricio and Patricky Pitbull. They could be talents, but we've never seen them against UFC fighters. The same with what's his face. Dang it!
I know exactly who you're thinking of.
But in Bellator, Gegard Mousasi, all these other fighters in Bellator, like, we've seen them lose in the UFC. Ryan Bader, he's the light heavyweight and heavyweight champion. Nobody is clamoring to see a cross promotional fight with Bellator because, one, they're not as popular, and two, nobody really thinks that they're. Well, yes, as MMA fans, we do, but like,
regular.
No, but nobody's saying like, oh, these guys are really the best. The UFC just like, they don't want to challenge them because they don't want their fighters to lose. Nobody's saying that anymore. In Pride, that was a real thing. They're like, Pride has better fighters, and if the UFC if UFC fighters take them on, they're gonna lose. Then, like, we saw that with Chuck Liddell when he went over that tournament over there.
I can see that starting to happen a little bit with one. If one keeps going the rate it's at over the next couple of years, and if they got some names from the UFC, I could see one starting to make a case, especially at least among MMA fans, to where it's like, I wonder if I wonder if a couple of those fighters could actually.
Well, they have the best flyweight in the world.
I know.
And one of the best lightweights in the world, in Eddie Alvarez.
Yep.
So, yeah, like, and, they've got Brandon Vera. He's no joke, but, he wasn't really the upper echelon when he was in the UFC. So that's the problem, is like, there's always that thing like, oh, well, they're good over there, but, if they came back to the UFC, they would be like middling talent. If a lot of these guys left and went to these other organizations, especially if they all went to like a single organization, like one,
they all went to one.
Yeah, if they all went to one FC, then we'd have a real big deal here. Because now all of a sudden, your fighters are leaving, getting out of your bullshit contracts. So because they're not employees. If they were employees, like, yes, you would have to pay them like their medical and do all that other stuff, but they wouldn't have a leg to stand on when they wanted to go work elsewhere.
But they're all independent contractors, which is what's crazy that the contract even stops them in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, and the
Like,
contract can be terminated at any point during the UFC, but it's not. But there's I think they've people have
and,
talked about this. There's no time frame where it expires.
and it's also from, I mean, just from legal. I've worked as a 1099 contractor before, and the company I work for ended up getting sued because, I mean, essentially, they had us as 1099 contractors, but then also tried to include non-compete clauses. And essentially, the lawyers were like, "You can't have both." Like,
Yeah, that's what like
yeah,
if you're an
like,
independent contractor, you should like
yeah,
you have to fill out your contract, but that doesn't mean you can't leave for another 2 years and go to a competing place because you were never an employee there.
exactly. It doesn't mean I can't just end. I had the power at any point to end my contract there and leave and go work somewhere else.
That's how it should be.
Yeah,
Because
because I was
as a contractor, you're not guaranteed your next day. You're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed services or
not guaranteed
benefits.
hours. Period.
Yeah, you're not guaranteed anything. So you in return, like you shouldn't have to guarantee anything either. Like you can guarantee that if they give you the opportunity to work, you will work, but you can leave at any time you want. That's part of the deal. Like that's one of the reasons why they get to pay you less is because, like I'm going to pay you less right now. I'm going to pay you less because I can
Yeah,
let you go at any time.
I didn't make overtime, but I could put in 60 hours in the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was part of the deal with it.
So that's why I want these guys to make more money. Like I'm not trying to be a sourpuss and saying that these guys shouldn't make more money. I'm just saying that what they're doing right now, throwing temper tantrums and all of them again, like their track records don't they don't warrant the UFC changing their behavior because they're not going to. The UFC is going to keep doing what the UFC does, and you guys are all going to fall by the wayside. No one's going to give a shit about Jorge Masvidal in 5 years. No one cares because the UFC is the brand.
Which
Jorge
is
Masvidal just happens to fight. It's like the NFL. Like the NFL is going to keep continuing despite whatever happens to like if a team changes a name or if somebody comes and goes. It doesn't matter. The NFL is going to be around.
it's just a real shame that you, like, honestly, probably in our lifetime at this rate, you're never going to see a UFC fighter get a shoe deal or like that type of thing. It's probably not going to be a shoe deal, but
Well,
like,
they had actually John Jones had one
did he have a shoe deal?
with Reebok.
Oh, well, but I mean, like, you're not going to be able to see someone go out and get a Nike shoe deal and wear those during fight week.
No,
Yeah,
not while they're doing this bullshit.
that's what I mean. Like, if you actually gave fighters that opportunity, it would also just increase the branding of the UFC because then you have fighters working with a bunch of different brands, bunch of different companies, and just increasing the exposure to the UFC. It's not
Yeah,
just like, yeah,
and the fighters who
everybody
want to
wins.
hustle, the fighters who want to hustle and go get all that stuff can go get it. And the fighters who don't can take whatever the UFC gives them anyway. It's the same. Like any fighter who's content to take what the UFC is giving them, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't put anything. I'm not putting them down. Like that's completely fine. But what if the fighters aren't okay with that? What if the fighter wants to go out and work harder? What if he wants to go out and market himself? What if he wants to go out and find somebody who's willing to pay more for his talents
Yeah.
or to use him as a billboard, whatever that
What
might
if you
be?
what if he wants to start his own company and use his platform to advertise for it?
Yeah.
A lot of fighters did.
Yeah, and like do you remember the DNA headphones? They did that for a while.
Extreme Couture.
Extreme Couture was in there. That was nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I miss the days when the fighter. We've been over this already. I
And
miss orange
I think
shorts.
it's lost on the UFC the fact that helped them come up. The brands getting out there, getting in stores. Hey, what is this brand? Where's it coming from? Oh, it's a fight brand. UFC fighters. Like,
I don't think it's lost on them. I think they know
yeah,
that they're already in a position where they don't need that stuff anymore, and it's helping the fighters give them more agency. And they realize that if they take that agency away and make everything about the UFC brand, you can't do anything about it. Like you can't do anything. Like you realize that like I'm not going to make more money selling T-shirts than I am fighting, so I have to fight. Or like I have no brand myself. Like that's why you have these fighters going out of their way to be clowns to try and get any media attention. Like just to do anything so that I become the brand. I become the name instead of UFC.
All right.
That's all it is.
I'll tell you what. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move back home, and we're just gonna start our own fight organization, and we're gonna do it right with blackjack and hookers, and it's gonna be great. John
You know
Jones
what?
is gonna come.
On second thought, screw the fighting.
Yeah.
We're just gonna.
Let's just hang out with John Jones. That's the.
Actually, that sounds like a blast. I think
Yeah,
he'd probably be a fun guy to hang out with. Like he was showing like mountain biking and shit with like a bunch of people. He just bought a new mountain bike, and he's like, "Hey, look, I got some new buddies." I'm like, "That sounds like a blast." He seems like a fun dude.
I would just be fascinated to talk to him, to actually like hear to hear his story from him in like a not media setting. I don't know. That'd be very interesting.
Just one question, sir. Why?
It's just like, who are you? Who is John Jones?
All right, man. Okay. So everybody.
Sorry for the last 40-minute rant.
No, this is a public service announcement. If you really want to support a fighter, and to being serious, if you really want to support a fighter, follow them on Instagram and Twitter. See if they have some sort of shirt or apparel deal, or if they have a website. Go to that website. See if you can support that fighter. Or on Twitter, most of these fighters, like, they're not movie stars, man. Like, they have a couple thousand followers, but they'll respond to you. And I don't mean that in a shitty way. What I mean is, if you want information about them, so how you can help them out, you can be like, hey, how can I support you as a fighter? So if you've got a favorite fighter and you want to see more, tweet at them. Be like, hey, how do I support you?
Do they have a Patreon page? I would Patreon fighters.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe some of these fighters do. I know Tim Sylvia put out a GoFundMe for his surgery. I believe it's already covered. But check that out if you guys get a chance. But yeah, like I said, all of this being said, if you want to support a fighter, there's better ways to do it than by buying a fucking Reebok kit. Go out, ask questions, do a simple Google search first, obviously, do your due diligence, and if you can't find out how to support a fighter, then ask them directly, and a lot of times they're going to respond to you, or you'll get somebody else responding towards you, and they'll let you know.
And if they do a podcast, listen to it. It's probably better than ours.
1,000 times better.
Yeah.
Like, with production quality and blackjack and hookers. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Like I said, like and subscribe. Put comments down below. Nobody's commenting. Somebody comment and say something. Ask us questions. I'd love to do a live one of these, like a Q&A one of these days. I'd love to do one of those.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Please ask us a question.
Yeah, please. Oh God, we're running out of material. But yeah,
who are you guys?
Who is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it for me. What else you got?
I just want to thank everyone that made it all the way through. Thank you for any and all of our fans. If you've listened to more than one of our podcasts, like straight up,
thank you, Hassam.
Yeah, thank you, Hassam. Yeah, it's just, these are awesome. I love doing this, Brendan, and yeah, whether or not you like it, we're gonna keep doing it. So if we can make it better, I will still try.
Hassam, Kareem, Charlie, and my mom doesn't even listen to this shit. Like, I tried to get my mom to listen, and she was like, what is this? And I'm like, just listen to him. Like, this is your son. Support me. And she's like, nah, I really don't like you that much. I'm like, I get it, Mom. Thanks. Yeah, but shout out to everybody who's listening to all these things. I really appreciate it. Let your friends know if they're interested in MMA. Like, we talk about this stuff a lot. And give us your suggestions. This can only get better. Like, I'm being serious. Like, this can only get better through the help of everyone else. Help guide us to something that you guys might want to listen to more.
All
right, yeah. Everybody.
And Spotify, please give us, $1 million contract. Or
yeah,
I'll take $10,000 contract.
I'll take $1,000.
Yeah. Just give me $50. I need some gas money.
Okay. Later, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Love y'all.
Peace.